Hey everybody, Ryan McCaffrey with IGN. I am joined by Double Fine's Lee Petty. You may remember him from such projects as art director on Brutal Legend, correct?
Yes, yeah.
Project lead on Stacking, when you guys split the company up into multiple teams after that. Art director on Broken Age, correct?
Yes, absolutely.
And now a new game called Headlander, which I already love from its name alone. And let's launch into it and give me the quick kind of Cliff's Notes version of what we're about to see.
Yeah, so Headlander is side-scrolling action-adventure game, and our big inspiration for the game was 70s science fiction, 1970s science fiction.
Yeah.
And so this is a world of automation. It's a world where humanity doesn't live in organic bodies, they live in robot bodies, and the whole world is controlled by a malevolent automaton, a computer, and you play the last organic human being left in the galaxy, but you're just ahead. And
it's like a Futurama episode.
Yeah, it is a bit. I mean, you don't start in a jar. Instead, you actually have a helmet. And this helmet's a special helmet that lets you fly around the world as just ahead, but it also lets you vacuum off other people's heads and computer terminals and land into them and take control of them.
I love where this is going already. So where does the idea come from to make a game about attaching a head to different bodies and using that for puzzle-solving mechanics and combat?
Yeah, it really started with me just with 1970s science fiction, and I think 1970s science fiction, at least as you see it now, has just got such a great combination of kind of like deep messages about humans' relationship with technology, and also it's just undeniably dumb. Yeah. It's just like really naive take on how technology and robots and a future society would work, and I love that collision of serious subtext, but just absurd visuals and dialogue.
And I love this sort of synthesized music that we've already got going on here, too.
We're recording all of our music, which is being composed by David Earls, all done on actual analog synths.
Nice.
So we've got some 70s and 80s synths he's writing it all on. So the player's got his first body here, and
swing.
Yeah, it's very shiny.
All right, so we've got our first robot body.
He's a citizen. Work. This is our sort of a standard human citizen body without any human in it. So you're in it now, and you sort of wake up on this ship, the Sarcophagus, and you're not really sure what's going on. There's been evidence of combat, and you've got this friendly voice in your helmet whose name is Earl. And Earl's he's a guy who talks you through the whole game. He's kind of there to help you out, and he's trying to keep you away from the computer and its forces, which are after you for some unknown reason.
Okay. And are we trying to get off the ship ultimately, or solve some sort of mystery on the ship?
So most of the game takes place not on this ship. So your goal here is to kind of find a way off this ship. And Earl's kind of talking you through it and introducing you to how your head flying works, because when you wake up in this world, you don't really have any memory or know who you are, and you can't actually talk as a player because you got no lungs. So you try and talk, and Earl's like, "Don't bother, you got no lungs."
So this is the beginning of the game here, for all intents and purposes.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm sure we'll give it extra love and polish for the final thing, but this is how the game starts. Kind of starts with a mystery, like some of my favorite science fiction from the era, and like, why is this happening? So it's all absurd at first, and slowly makes a little more sense. It'll still be absurd at the end of the day. But we have a lot of talking entities. We try to take mundane things like doors, which you use in most games, and all of our doors are run by a character named Rod, who's got a chip on his shoulder if you have the wrong security clearance. And
Rod, door spelled backwards.
It is door spelled backwards. And it also stands for routine operator of doors. And he's got a lot of anger about both of those things he'll talk to you about if you talk to him. So, we have our game is all about lasers, like science fiction used to be. And so our laser is all bounce.
Nice.
And so a lot of our combat and kind of environment challenge puzzles are all based on bouncing lasers to open things or reveal hidden areas.
I like the little puff of steam there as you latch onto a new body.
It's we like, when we were talking about the ideas for the sounds and the visuals or ideas of the game, we like to imagine that digital technology was never invented, but somehow underneath this all, it's like vacuum tubes and solid state.
Hence the monitor, there's sort of CRT interlaced monitor there.
Yeah, it's all kind of keyboards.
That's great.
Security lasers are blocking the way to the
So we have these impassable lasers, these kind of solid continuous beams that are in parts of our game that eventually you learn to manipulate, but right now you can't pass them, and so the player is not able to get to the escape pod, and you're going to have to find a way around it. You see, our robots
Shot there.
are not super bright, and that's intentional because you're going to fight a lot of them, usually a lot of them at once.
Yeah.
But one of the things we try to do with them is give them, these ridiculous personalities too. So they always kind of announce what's going on with them. Like if you shoot them, they'll tell you that they've taken damage, or if they'll issue you demerits if you don't stop when they tell you to. Just kind of this. They're not. There's very clearly a big gap between their intellectual capability and actual humans.
Right.
And because you are a human and you can kind of improvise and think on your feet, you can use that against this world of automation.
I don't know why this is occurring to me. Maybe it's just because the 70s sci-fi sort of vibe, but I'm imagining this Headlander could have been. It's almost like if Mass Effect, they had just gone in a completely different direction. This is what Mass Effect could have turned into.
It's funny. Mass Effect is great, and I remember seeing. I think one of the artists posted some of their ship designs as if it had been rendered more in the 70s.
Right.
And I was like, why doesn't the whole game look like this? I love that. Yeah, there's just something about 70s, graphic design, architecture, fashion.
When you grew up with it too, more or less.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, you see it. I mean, most people are obviously familiar with Star Wars, which is kind of like to some extent on the tail end of that visually.
Yeah.
But movies like Logan's Run or Barbarella or 2001 or THX 113, a lot of these have these. They can't. I don't know how intentional it was, but they couldn't escape the times. And I think that's what makes them so charming now is when you kind of look at them again, you're like, oh, remember when they used to think technology was like that?
I think a lot of 90s movies fall victim to that same thing, too. All right, so now we have vacuum powers.
Yeah, so now, when you first start, you get this upgrade here, and you have a vacuum drive, and that lets you pull these heads off or a variety of things in the environment, because you can use lasers to headshot them, but a lot of times you're stuck as a head, and that's another tactic you can use. So he's kind of wandered onto the bridge here, and look at that.
How many just intentionally awful head puns are there in this game? Tell me.
The funny part is we haven't made too many, only because they're so easy. I figure that as a team,
low-hanging fruit.
Yeah, it'll come. I'm sure the marketing campaign will involve the game being ahead of its time. They're too easy. We do have a lot of bad puns in the game, I will say. They kind of
excellent. I love those.
Sneak around. I think maybe one of my favorite ones is the door system. Rod, who's obsessed with color-based security clearance, will make color puns if you show up to the door with the wrong security clearance. Our game progression for our enemies and the power is all based on the colors of the spectrum. So the bar in the lower right there shows that we're in a red body, which is like the lowest security clearance.
Okay.
And that means that we can open red doors and we fire lasers that are a certain power that bounce once. But orange, we can get into orange doors. They bounce twice. They do more damage, and so on and so forth. So
you got to know your Roy G. Biv color. You
do.
Gotta just keep it in mind for this game.
It was funny because, of course, it seems obvious probably to most nerdy people what that is. But then I realized, there's a lot of people who probably aren't familiar with that. So we do make a lot of jokes and puns about it. There's public service announcements the computer does throughout the level to remind you of how Roy G. Biv works. And, of course, our HUD interface element. So we deactivated the lasers, and, a lot of our game gives you multiple ways to kind of go through the levels and achieve your objectives. So
a little Metroidvania-esque in that regard.
Yeah, we have a main mission structure that tells the story that's pretty linear, but the player has a lot of extra things they can do in optional missions and different ways to meet those objectives. So you can actually pull the heads off these little angry vacuum cleaners. They're called the electrosucks.
Eject dust with circle.
Yeah, so they can expel these dusts, and if you actually do it on an enemy,
just fart dust.
It distracts them. Yeah, it distracts them a little bit. And they have access to these other underbelly of the ship that you don't get into. So we're going to use this guy to kind of shortcut our way back. And we could have used that elevator earlier and fought our way back, but this one's kind of fun because you get to meet these characters. This is a saboteur vacuum cleaner who's disabled the ship's central suction system because they're worried that they're being replaced by this modern technology. So they're kind of rebelling. I mean, it's even though this world is all controlled by this one evil computer, what you realize early on is that there's all these sort of passive-aggressive, distinct personalities that are subverting it, you know. And so, yeah, you saw that we have that laser that fires a triple shot. Within
Contra style.
Yeah, we do a lot of semi-random placement of these. So when you get a new body, you always get a little bit of discovery, like, oh, what's this laser pattern like? And right here, for example, we couldn't use our body to get by that obstacle, but you can always head fly it. So a lot of the game is about the player choosing whether they're in head or body mode, and they each have different risks and rewards. You get a lot of great laser damage if you're in a body, but the head can get through small spaces and it's harder to shoot. So we couldn't get into this escape pod with the body, but we could headland into its engine and just activate it directly. So the player is going to exit the ship here and hopefully escape the computer. And the 70s is all about white fiberglass too. I think our game is 90% white fiberglass. We made it. We're free.
Well, good stuff. That is Headlander, an early look at it. What platforms are we on, and when are we going to finally get to play this for ourselves?
We're coming in 2016, and we are going to come out on PC and Mac, and we're console exclusive right now on PlayStation 4.
Gotcha. Well, I love the art. I love. I don't know if I've seen that much orange in a game in years, and I mean that in a good way. It's all for all the grays and browns we typically get. It just looks fantastic. Lee, thank you so much, and for much more on Headlander, keep it tuned right here to head on over to IGN. I'm going to sneak one in before the end of the video. Thanks, Lee.
Thanks.